Hello and welcome back for another episode of the Accessible Technology Podcast with me, Phoebes Lyle. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, this is a podcast where you get to hear about what everyday technologies are the most accessible for disabled people, as well as learning what is the least accessible if you are disabled, and that also gets into giving tips to technology companies on how they can make their technology even more accessible. But as recurring visitors and returning listeners will know, this is something that I have an actual personal interest in because I am paralyzed from the neck down, which means that I can only use technology with a chopstick or a stylus in my mouth or with voice control because I can't move anything other than my head. So yeah, please consider following it and sharing it if you like what I'm doing. You can listen to this podcast by searching for it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, and Spotify. However, if you'd like to support the podcast and the content I produce in other ways, you can also support it by going over to the Phoebes Now Buy Me a Coffee page, which is where you will also be able to find exclusive episodes that aren't part of the podcast, as well as checking out a shop that I plan to open at some stage. In today's episode, however, you're going to hear me reacting to Apple's second generation HomePod. But before we get fully into the reaction, please let me just give you a couple of additional notes about the history of the HomePod, just so you can bring these up in some conversations you might be having. You never know, this might come up in a quiz at some point. So the Apple HomePod was first launched in 2018 after the Amazon Echo had been available to the public for 3 years and after the Google Home had been available for 2. So yes, in other words, Apple decided that they want to jump in and start a war between various other smart home systems. However, while the original HomePod did come out in 2018, it was soon followed by the HomePod Mini in November 2020, and the original HomePod was discontinued not long after then in March 2021. But in January of this year, Apple announced the second generation HomePod, which is what you're going to hear me reacting to today. But now that I've said all of that, let's jump straight in to the reaction.
Introducing the new HomePod. HomePod senses its surroundings and calibrates for where it's placed. Advanced computational audio, powered by Apple Silicon, optimizes acoustic performance. 2 HomePod speakers can be used for stereo pairing. It all comes together for the ultimate home audio experience. HomePod is also your smart home hub, with privacy and security built in. Transfer music using your iPhone. And with Siri, you can do so much more.
Hey Siri, tell everyone food's here. Food's here, food's here.
The new HomePod.
I wanna find myself inside.
So after that, I feel like the HomePod is Apple's way of trying to promote their spatial audio again for other means other than the AirPods that you can get. However, I do feel like the one thing that I bring up, even though I am an Apple fan with everything else I own, is are there really as many technologies that work with the HomePod that work with Google Home or the other one that Amazon has that I have around the house that pretends to hear me this time and says anything to me, but you know who I'm talking about. I feel like Amazon with their smart speaker at least have it working with more stuff and allow you to do more things with it, such as turning on the TV and everything else, controlling blinds, etc. But I'm really, although I am ambitious and interested in researching into it, I'm not too sure whether or not I would be able to control my Apple TV with the HomePod, but yeah, it does sound interesting enough, and I will give the HomePod one thing. The one thing that it does offer that in a way I wish Google Home and the other one did offer is the ability to put your phone on top of it to let everything echo out and to play it if you can't get the smart speaker itself to play it. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts. But let me ask, are you a fan of Apple's HomePod? And what are your thoughts on this new second generation one? Do you think it's much of the same thing as the original, like me and various others? Or is there anything that you dislike about it? Or is there anything that you really like about it if you got it? And tell me, are there any other smart assistants you prefer instead of it? Well, if you would like to pass on some of your thoughts, you can include them in a review wherever you're listening to this on, as well as via the contact page over on my eltechreviews.co.uk website or on my other website, phoebelau.com. If you're interested in watching any of the videos that I upload on accessible technology, you can find more of them by going over to YouTube and searching for the PL Tech Reviews channel and subscribing to it. But there's also a link in the episode notes that will take you to this video in particular. So if you want to try out the video version, then please go ahead. But if you would also like to check out my accessible tourism reviews, as well as my film, TV, theatre reviews, and political videos, you can find all of those by going over to YouTube and searching for Phoebes Lau Journalism, as that's the channel where I try to reach out to other journalism brands, since that's my job away from all of this. However, if you don't want to sit through video versions of all of that, but you're still interested in accessible tours, theatre reviews, film reviews, and TV reviews and political videos, you can still find a video-free version of all of them by just searching for the Phoebes Lau podcast on all of the same destinations as you can listen to this podcast on. But of course, there is also the Buy Me a Coffee page again, and that's where you'll be able to find some exclusive episodes of this podcast that aren't actually part of it. Plus, you'll have the opportunity to give me a one-time donation. In the next episode, you're going to hear me reacting to the news that PlayStation have finally announced an accessibility controller. So you're going to hear me reacting to how good that is and giving you a couple of my thoughts on all of that. And after that, you'll be hearing my thoughts and reactions to Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro coming to the iPad, although it still depends on what model of iPad you have. And then after that, I'll be getting into all of my thoughts on a couple of things that were announced at WWDC 23. So please look forward for all of that. I plan to update this podcast 3 times a week at the minute, but that could change depending on how much work I get in the next few weeks and months and everything else. But yeah, I'll try to keep it as regular as I can. If you would like to follow me on all of my socials, you can do so by searching for @Phoebes Lau on Twitter, or as it is now, X. And my Instagram handle is the real Phoebes Lau. However, you can also follow the Phoebes Lau Tech review site as well if you have a WordPress account and local business. But if you don't, honestly, you can still just support everything that I do as part of that by just following this podcast or subscribing to the YouTube channel. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye!